Okay. Just back a trend. Shalom, no cookies.
I'm gonna die.
Oh, really?
No. Any funny ideas? Why would you stash?
Okay. Well, let's see. We're holding on top of Ayin Ches, 78. Thank Hashem that you're able to find Torah every day. That's chus of our learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Learning Lili Nishma, Sabbath all the Bas Baruch from Yemen, San Elzev Ben Zion, and for Shlema for David Ben. So, and Sarah, whoever else needs her for Shlema. It's okay. I think living it out. Okay. So we start on the top. Pshita. What did we say before? That there was a difference in a sale. So when someone makes a sale, but the payment wasn't done in full, so it depended on if the person was selling this property because he needed money. If he needed the money, then it was only sold the amount that he needed of the money that was given. But
where are you holding?
On top of Ayin Ches, Pshita, the top word. But if the sale, well, he didn't need the money. He just wasn't interested in this property anymore. So then, even if the person didn't pay the whole amount, the sale was really on the whole amount, and the rest of it he owes. So we call that ayel v'nafik Suzi. That if the person is coming in and out looking for his money, so then we say, oh, he sold it because he needed the money. So then it would only be sold the amount of that the money was given, not more than that. So it was clear that was the purpose of the sale. Let's say someone wanted to sell a field that was the size of the value of 100 coins, but no one wanted to buy that size field. Yeah, it's like a small apartment or something. Here we're talking about a field. So therefore he sold a much larger one that was worth 200. But now he's going in and out for the money. So like honey, the person doesn't acquire the field because he sold it because he needs the money. So why didn't he sell the smaller one? He sold the larger one. Well, he couldn't find anyone to buy it. Ella, the problem is, let's say he had potential of selling the smaller one, but he didn't. He didn't put in the extra effort to sell the smaller one, and it was easier for him to sell the bigger one. So maybe the fact that he's selling the larger one, that's because he doesn't really care about this field anyway. So it's not specifically for the money that he's selling it. Maybe that's what it's showing us. So maybe he's selling it because he wasn't really interested in this field, or maybe he's selling it because he needs the money and he didn't need all the money, but it was easier to sell this one. So the Gemara says teku. We don't have an answer for that. If it's sold entirely, or if it's sold only the amount of money that was given, only the down payment amount. Okay, back to the Mishnah. It says, and if there's a wagon driver or whatever was hired and there was a loss, if the person doesn't come, if the workers don't come through, it was a loss because let's say it was a wedding or something like that. So the rule is that the owner is allowed to hire other workers at the first worker's expense. Ad kama seichalem. Kadar? Yeah. Oh, fine. Okay. In yeshiva, they didn't really care about your pronunciation. Okay. So because there's another version that we learned was Kerer. There's another version of it instead of the down was a resh. It was like on the word car. Kadar is a potter.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It says donkey driver or a potter.
Or potter, right?
So it's
The wagon driver. Yeah, his version is that the potter has a wagon.
driver.
Okay. So he's allowed to hire and they have to pay, or he can trick them into coming to work. Ad kama seichalim, how much can he hire against their wages? What can he do? Rav Nachman says ad k'dei schar, the amount of their wages. Even though they may have started to do work, but they didn't finish it. Now you can hire, and they could lose all their wages entirely because of the new workers that would not work for less. There's another version that says ad k'dei schar means double their wages. Well, Esvei Raveler of Nachman Adar Chamishim Zuz. Rava says to Rav Nachman, what are you talking about? We have a Brisa or a Mishnah that says 40 and 50 Zuz. That's a very interesting answer. He's saying that this is talking about where the briefcase of the workers was left in the workplace. So because he has access to their tools, he can now hire and sell their tools. And now, are you really allowed to do that? If a guy quits in middle and leaves his computer in the office, he didn't finish the job, you're allowed to now sell his items. That's not interesting. Over here, it looks like you're allowed to.
Because it's considered a Kenyan.
Yeah, if it would be that he said, use this to hire the next workers, then fine. But just to take a guy's, well, I don't know. I guess because he has the obligation to pay for because there was a loss, and it's his obligation. Okay, so now the question is if it's obligation, so why are we only saying that ad k'dei scharan if it's his obligation, whether the guy left his briefcase there or not? He should be able to, the owner should be able to hire and send them the bill. Stand in line. Okay. Someone that hires a donkey, rents a donkey. Leilicha Bahar. He's going to take it up the mountain. That's what he tells the rental company. They say, where are you going? Some places when you rent the car, they ask where you're going.
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. He takes it into the valley. He says he's taking it into valley, but instead he takes it up the mountain. Even if it's exactly the same distance, mesa, but the animal died. Chayev, the renter is obligated for the death, for the loss. He changed from the stipulation. That's right. What is it? Mountain tires. Now it gets a little more detailed. Gemara's going to ask, how come we didn't have the details in the beginning? It says, rents a donkey to take it up the mountain. And he takes it into the valley. If it slipped, then pater, then he's exempt. Because slipping could be in the same thing. It doesn't slip more in the valley than it does on the mountain. It would probably slip more on the mountain than in the valley. But it slipped in the valley, so he's exempt. But if it got hot, then he's chayav, because the valley is hotter than the mountains. The mountain has more of a breeze. The valley is like the valley in California. It's nice and hot. 115 degrees, right? On a summer day. So it's dry.
It's a cool air donkey.
Right. He likes the
told him
color.
in advance. He would have said, my donkey should go there.
Well, that's what he made up. He's made up. Don't take it into the mountain. There's that. Don't worry about it. I do this all the time. Anyway, so if it's overheated, heat stroke, So then he's chayiv. Let's say they made up that he was going to take it to the valley, but instead he took it on the mountain. If it slipped, then chayiv because the mountain is more slippery. But if it heated, if it got too hot, then pater, then he's going to be exempt because that doesn't happen for the mountain. In the mountain, but if you saw that it was because of the elevation or maybe just trying to climb, then he's going to be chayiv because that's what heated up. If someone rents a donkey, Vivrika is a certain type of illness, or it was taken away for some public service, and they were taking anyone that has donkeys. We need them for something, so they took them away. So the owner of the donkey says to the renter, you go figure it out on your own. So I'm not supplying you with the new one. It's not my fault. That's whatever is going on with the place where you went. Mesa inishpera. If it died or it broke exactly means broke a leg or something. Then for that he has to supply him with a new one. The Gemara asks that originally it says that if he made up to take it in the mountain, he took it in the valley, he's chayiv. Then it says it depends how it died. Second case, made up he took it in the valley. It depends how it died. So why did we make this distinction only in the second case and not in the first case? So Amri Debei Rabbi Yanai, the yeshiva Rabbi Yanai says, Reisha Shemesa Machmasavir. The Amrina Navira the Har Katla, Amrina Navira the Bika Katla. We say, that it was the change of ear that it wasn't used to. This happens when I go up the mountains. The first day I get a headache. Does that happen to you? Like when you're going up to camp or whatever, first day the air is like different. The way you breathe is different, I think. Okay, anyway, so Vira the hard katla, Vira the bika katla. So it was a change in the air pressure that caused it to die, and so that it doesn't make a difference if it slipped or this or that. It's just it died because of the air. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, it died because of exhaustion. It was a different sort of trip than what it was used to. It wasn't used to go to doing that. Rabba says that it died from a snake bite. So it doesn't matter if it was a mountain or whatever. Why is he chayiv though from a snake then? Is that his fault?
There's more.
Is there any comments over there? Snake bite? Any notes? See, I get why he's chayiv when he does something wrong, because of what he did, he's the one that caused it. The exhaustion or difference in the air.
With the snake unless it's a place that you shouldn't have been?
According to this explanation, the first section teaches that even though it is known that the donkey's death was not caused by slipping or overheating, but apparently by an unavoidable mishap, snake bite, the renter is liable because the renter deviated from terms of the agreement. But there's no connection to. It's only deviating in a way. I thought it was only deviating in a way that causes the problem.
Yeah, it says here, as this is just a likely to happen in one place as it is.
So maybe
No, that should be pater. Now we're saying it's chayiv.
Is it saying that it's chayiv?
Yeah. Taisus Rosh adds that it was known that snakes were more prevalent in the place where the renter improperly led the animal than the place stipulated. Okay, that's good. Other commentators, however, understand that the renter is liable because this is a situation that began with negligence with regard to the animal slipping or overeating. So it's negligence regarding to that, even though it ended with an unavoidable mishap of a snake bite.
Sub-bonus for sofa bonus, even though it's a different item.
Right. The owner is entitled to claim that if the renter not negligently led the donkey along the more precarious route, acting in accordance with their agreement, the donkey would not have been bitten. So this is an interesting.
It's like a chiddush.
Yeah.
So he says here. The Meir is teaching that the renter's departure from the intention of the owner regarded as significant, even if what he did would not be considered negligence, right? As long as the issue is whether he departed from what he said.
Right. Right. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Move like one step to the wrong way,
Yeah.
you're not covered.
Hill is comparing it to insurances where they put a lot of restrictions on you. So then if something happens, that's an absolute accident. But because you violated something else in this insurance agreement, you're void. Finished.
That's why you need a good adjuster.
So, okay. There's different shatim over here. It could be this hikisha nachash, according to the Tosfos Rush, is either that it's more prevalent for there to be snakes in whichever one he went to, or it could be that it's going under the category of tchilas b'pshia v'seifa b'inus, which is a machlekes, right? It's a machlekes if tchilas b'pshia v'seifa b'inus is fine. Reb Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan, Reb Chia bar Abba says name of Rabbi Yochanan. You see, we have a problem with the Mishnah. We're trying to resolve it. The first case of the Mishnah doesn't tell me any distinctions between how exactly the animal died. The second case does. So we're asking why did it do that? We're explaining it died differently. It died from the air or whatever. Rabbi Yochanan says no, it's just a machlokes. Hamani, the Reisha, you know who that is? That's Reb Meir. That's the opinion of Reb Meir. Anyone that deviates from the intention of the owner, then Nikr Gazlan is called the thief. Once he's called the thief, then he's chayav for absolutely everything. So why did the Sefer make a distinction? Depends how it died, this or that. That's because the Sefer is the Rabbanan. A different opinion. Hi, Reb Meir. Where do you get this? That Reb Meir says that anyone that deviates from the intention is a Gazlan. Ilim Reb Meir Tzav. If you say that it's Reb Meir of the dyes, remember we had this Mishnah, the Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. Nice and if someone gives wool to a dyer, let's play Adam with Tzavi Shachar, tells him to dye it red, but the guy dyes it black. Shachar with Tzavi Adam. Black, and he dyes it red. Rameir says nice on the Meitzamri. Rameir says that you have to pay for the wool. Why do you have to pay for the wool? Because he's a thief. How much does he pay? The amount that the wool was at the time then he stole it, which was when he deviated from the. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda says he has a lower hand. He can't take the full price for his labor, but he does get paid for whatever he put into it. Or if there was improvements to the wool that's less than what he put into it, he gets that.
Whatever's more.
Whatever's less. Mimai. So how do you know that Reb Meir's opinion by this is because that he's considered a thief? Maybe he acquired it with a shinoi. What the Gemara is alluding to here is, or maybe saying clearly, is that when someone steals something, it doesn't become his until he makes a shinoi in it. When he makes a shinoi in it, when he changes it, makes a change in it, that's when the thief acquires it. So it's saying maybe deviating without making a change doesn't mean that you acquire it. But over here, you deviated with a change. You made a change in the item itself. That's why you acquired it. Yeah, Hill is asking, but usually it was a combination with Yush and Shinai. I think maybe only Yush and Shinai Rishus. I don't know if it's Yush and Shinai. Shinai Rishus, Yush and change of ownership. If he sells it together with Shinai, that may be. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I know the commentators here discussed this. And the biggest problem here is that he's not really stealing. We only say Shini acquires by stealing. Over here, he's just a worker that's not doing it correctly, not really stealing. So it looks like over here, we're saying that every Shina acquires. Okay, whatever the case is, the Gemara says, how do you know that this is this Reb Meir is telling me what you're saying? Allah Reb Meir, must be a different Reb Meir. Allah Reb Meir, the Magvis Purim, it's Reb Meir from the Purim collection. The Tanya was taught in a brisa, Magvis Purim, the collection that's done for Purim, which means that they collect money for Purim so that everyone should have food for the meal, for the Hamatashin. Purim, that's for only supposed to be used for Purim. It doesn't go to other community causes or other poor people. It just goes to be spent on Purim for the meal, Purim meal. Magvas a year, Leis a year. And the collection that's done for this city is only done for this city. They medaktik medavar, and we're not specific about if they need more or less. If they need less, rather, we use it for the city. We use it for Purim. We'll get them even things that they don't need because the collection was for Purim. So what do you do if there's going to be extras? So it says you buy cats, whatever's left over you sell, and that money goes to back to charity. So in other words, you used it all for Purim, but what was left over after Purim, that goes not money from the pushka, but money from what you sold from the Purim meal. Rabbi Lezer says, "Magus Purim ve'inani rashai likach memitzul sandali." The Purim collection is used for Purim, and a poor person is not allowed to use it to buy a strap for his shoe. Unless he discusses it with the city, the people of the city. Gave him the money. Rabbi Yaakov, that's what Rabbi Yaakov says. Shamishim Rabbi Meir, that says the name of Rabbi Meir. So here we have something in the name of Rabbi Meir that says that you're not allowed to deviate from the instructions of the This happens, I think, with sometimes collectors, not collectors, but some of the people need money, and they say, oh, he needs a new this, he needs that, so they give it to him, and meanwhile he was spent it on this other bills that he has. They say, what happened? I got you a new kapata. It says, well, I needed to pay, put gas in the car. So,
what do? They sell the kapata for money?
No, the guy gave him money, go to the store and buy kapata, and he went and put gas in the car. So, he wouldn't be allowed to do that. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is lenient. So here we're saying that if you deviate, it's a problem. The Gemara answers, the Gemara suggests, not an answer, it's actually a question. Still mahasam nami, maybe the money is not even in the hands of the recipient, it's in his hands, but it's not owned by him. It's still, the person, like he says, gives him $100 bill. He says, go buy what you need. But the change will belong back to the owner. So maybe it's not even his to be able to do that. That's why Reb Meir is saying that you can't deviate. Okay, so Elohar Reb Meir. It must be a different Reb Meir at the time, not a different Reb Meir, a different source. And Reb Meir's teachings that tell us this rule that Rabbi Yechanan's coming up with. Rather, it's Reb Meir that taught in a brisa. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Mishim Reb Meir. Reb Shimon says the name of Reb Meir. If someone gives a poor man a dinar, should go buy a shirt. You shouldn't buy a talis with it. Talis, if he buys a talis, you shouldn't buy a shirt with it. Because he's deviating. You see, the holds you're not allowed to deviate from the. Maybe there was a separate problem over there that you may suspect the wealthy man, Damri Inchi, because people are going to say, Amar Planya, Zavnina Leilvushila Planyanya, Blaze Ovenly. Zavnina Glima Blaze Ovenly. He made an announcement at Brengan that I'm going to buy clothing for such and such a person. And then meanwhile, the guy doesn't have any new clothing. So they're going to start suspecting, like, hey, I thought you took achlata. I thought you said that. So they're going to suspect him. So that's why the poor man is not allowed to deviate. Because if he does deviate, then everyone's going to suspect the guy that he didn't buy him the stuff. So you're ruining the rich man's name. So the Gemara says, then it says, Why does it say Mnei Shemavar al Daita Shel Baal Bayis? It should say my Mnei Shemavar al Daita Shel Bayis. It should say because of suspicion. That's why you should do it. It's totally different. Shema we see from this. Mishum Deshaniu, it's because he deviates. V'chol Mavar al Daita Shel Baal Bayis. Anyone deviates from the instructions is considered a gas, which makes these insurance things. When they tell you you're not allowed to drive the car, up a certain on dirt roads, let's say, it has to stay on the street, and then you end up taking the car on the dirt roads, coming back to the street roads, and something happens. It overheats or something. You call them up and say, "Come fix it." Really, they don't have to. Once you went off, once you deviated, you become chayav in every inus.
Every in Israel that they tell you go
Even though it's
green
unrelated.
line.
Cover. Out of state, this is things with out of state.
Even if you're there to videotape abuses by sugar plantation owners.
Ooh.
So even though the damage
That's really it.
was unrelated,
Unrelated,
road, they could just
you
say,
become a goslin. Once a
Almost
person's
like
a goslin, then he's chayav on every miss.
well,
Yeah.
is that to the actual environment, hotter.
So that's the machlekes. The Reb Meir holds that you're chayav no matter what once you deviate. And the Chachamim say that no, you're not chayav once you deviate. It has to be relevant. Has to be connected to the. Yeah. So I don't know what the halach is, but Meir, they're correct.
There was a situation like, oh, did the animal died because of the impact it was.
Yeah, it's machlekes Rav and Shmuel.
Yeah.
Right. Someone hires, he rents a donkey, and it gets ill. Maya Vivrika, what type of illness is it? It's some sort of dot in the eye. Is it a white dot in the black of the eye, or it's something going on in the eye? Swelling of the pupil? Okay. What does that mean when it swells? That means it not dilates. Dilates means it opens.
Which resembles a
Speck in the eye. Okay.
speck.
Floaters, I think they call it. Okay, anyway, Hachatagim in our eyes, it's some sort of like blindness. Rav Amar Avzekes. It's a worm that goes in the feet and so it like rots the feet. Udam Malahu. Yeah, there was a person that said Avzekes b'milsa de Malka. There's a moth or a worm in the king's silk. Amrle in the king's clothing. Amrle b'mai, which clothing? Betali kesef or betali dahav? Is it in the ones that look like silver, which would mean linen, or is it in the golden clothing, which means wool? I guess the wool was like a natural yellowish to it, and the linen was more white. So ikadamri, some say that it was betali kesef. Amar bekatlua. He said that it was in the. He claimed that it was in the linen, and they killed him because there's no such thing as moths eating linen. Ikadami, that those that say Betalidav Amar V'Shavkua, he said that it was in the gold and they left him. I have no clue what the meaning of this story is. I don't know what it's doing. I don't know what it's telling me. Any notes on that? Like what's this? I know how it came in. It came in because we used the word avzekas, which is a moth or a worm or something.
Isn't kesef silver? Or you translate it as linen?
Yeah, it's silver, but it's because it's white. Rashi says that's referring to linen garments. Let me see if there's any comment over here of what's the significance of this. Ritva cites an alternative interpretation of this episode. The officers were questioning the man in order to ascertain whether the keeper of the royal wardrobe was negligent. If the man testified that the moths ate the king's flaxen garments, it would be clear that the keeper was negligent and therefore deserving of execution, since such an unnatural occurrence could have been prevented. If the man, you do have something? If the man testified that the motzei the woolen garments, however, the keeper would be held blameless, since some destruction from such natural occurrences as moth consuming woolen material is unavoidable. See there for another version of the story. Okay. Yitzi has a Hasidic interpretation, but he's not sharing it until we're 40. Okay.
Silver is like the flax and the wool is like the wool.
Right.
When they say, it's deep. I'll tell you.
Oof, that's deep. I'm smelling it already.
Zangaria, or it was taken away, like confiscated because of some community service thing where they needed animals for something. The king is soldiers or whatever it is. So Aimalai, the owner, can say, "It's not my problem; it's your problem. I rented you the donkey. This is not nothing to do with me. That's now the king took it away." Amar Rav says, that would only apply if the king returns it. If the people that confiscated return it.
So they could say, listen, this was during your rental time. Sorry.
Right. But if it never comes back, then we're going to compare that to it died. When it dies, the owner has to replace it. Then you would have to replace it. That's the opinion of Rav. Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says no. It doesn't matter if it gets returned, it doesn't get returned. It matters something else. If right, yeah, something like that. If it was traveling the same direction that you're traveling in, you should have traveled along with it, and hopefully they'll find another one and they'll return yours. And if they were going in a different direction, then they have to supply the renter, the owner has to supply him with the new one. Very interesting. Because you think that it has nothing to do with it. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Someone rents a donkey and the donkey gets ill, or it goes crazy. So he says, okay, your loss. Go figure it out. The explanation for that is that you can still use it, even though it's ill. It's just, you just have to pay more attention. You can still carry your loads, even though it's crazy. You just have to tie it tighter. Metzia Zangaria, if it dies or it was taken away by this conscription, then they has to supply him with a new donkey. So 1 second. Rav. According to Rav, that explained the Mishnah that it depends if it's coming back or it's not coming back. So then, like Kasha, why does the Mishnah say that he says, sorry, your loss? That's because it was supposed to come back. Why does the Brisa say that he has to supply him with a new one? Because it wasn't coming back. Depends what type of the way they took it away. El Shmuel Kasha, but according to Shmuel, that says that it has to do with which way it's going. It doesn't matter if it's coming back or not. So why one Mishnah says that keeps it the Mishnah, and the Brisa says that the Mishnah says that you go figure it out. And the Brisa says that the owner has to supply him with the new one. We can answer. The difference is it wasn't going in the same direction. The Mishnah was talking about went in the same direction. The Brisa was talking was going in a different direction. Problem is, can't say that because the Mishnah concludes. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, if it was going in the same direction, he says here it is before him, and if not, he has to supply him with a new donkey. The fact that Reb Shimon ben Elazar says that would imply that the Tanakama doesn't make that distinction. So we have a contradiction in between the Mishnah and the Brisa. So Amalach Shmuel responds to you, love me, Reb Shimon ben Elazar, the Koikavasi. Why asking a kasha? I have Reb Shimon ben Elazar that says exactly what I say. I was saying the opinion of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. That's how I hold. Well, another Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Iba Yisema, if you want, you can say a different teretz. Kula Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The entire Bryce's opinion of Reb Shimon ben Elazar it's missing words, and it should be taught as follows. So when it's a donkey and it gets ill or it goes crazy, we say, okay, it's your loss. If it dies or it's taken away by the community thing, conscripted, has to supply him with another donkey. When do we say that that's only if it's going in a different direction? But if it's going in the same direction, say, okay, that's your loss. Give Reb Shimon ben Elazar. This is the words of Reb Shimon ben Elazar on top of 79. Say Reb Shimon ben Elazar, because Reb Shimon ben Elazar would say, if it was going in the same direction, it says, okay, that's your loss. Follow along, and hopefully you'll get it back. And if not, he has to supply him with a new donkey. Okay. Can we say that we're actually following the opinion of Reb Shimon ben Elazar? The problem is, but the first part of the Brisa says, if it gets ill, you say, okay, it's your loss. Or it went crazy, you say it's your loss. Reb Shimon ben Elazar, his opinion is, we don't say that it's your loss if it goes crazy or it gets ill. We say that it's the owner has to replace it. Now, if you look carefully, over here it says if he rented a donkey to ride on it. The other one said rented a donkey. Didn't say what he was doing with it. Probably using it to carry a load.
But if he's
Yeah.
That in and of itself is not borrowing.
Right.
If he's renting, be able to replace it.
Right. Right. But the owner, in certain cases, can say that I rented it to you. It's not perfect. You can still use it and figure it out.
Like it's still usable.
Still usable.
We see that a lot with like tenants and stuff like that.
Right. Right. The tenant says the refrigerator it doesn't work so well. I said, what do you mean? It's still cold. It's fine. No. The pickup on the rental car isn't so good. I want to know it. So what are you talking about? It's fine. Okay.
It happens while get it fixed, take it to the dealer. It's about to break down. Oh, we did tests, it's still good. You gotta wait till it breaks down.
Uh-huh. So Amar of Papa. I'm sorry. Amar Rabba Baravuna Lirka Velashani. There's a big difference between if you're renting this animal to carry a load to if you're riding on it yourself. If you're riding on it yourself, then you can't handle it if it's went crazy or if it's blind. It could fall off a bridge or it could throw you into a ditch. That you don't want. But if it's carrying a load, that's different. Amar of Papa. Or Papa says, please if it's carrying glass, so then that's just like if you're riding on it, you can't take those chances. Okay. Rav Baravuna says name of Rav. Someone rents a donkey to ride on it, and it dies halfway. So he pays for the rental for half the way. And then he's just gets angry at the guy. He's allowed to have complaints. But what's his complaints? You gave me an animal that couldn't make it the whole way. Right. What's the case? If it's common to find a new animal to rent, what kind of complaints does he have? Just go rent a new one and pay the rest of the money. You only paid for half, so pay the rest. If they don't have rental places there, why does he even have to pay him his rent? Why does he have to pay the first money? He's stuck in the middle of the Yehupitz. Really, it's not common to find renters. The owner tells him, look, if you wanted to come here, you would have to pay me, which is halfway to his destination. let's say this is where you wanted to go, you would have to pay me the price for this. So I got you halfway. Yeah, it's a weak claim because it says I had no reason to be in this place. I needed to be. Says, well, I got you halfway. Okay. Echidami. What's the case? If he says I want to rent a donkey, so he didn't say this donkey, so he should have supply him with a new one because he says I want to rent a donkey, so get him a new donkey because he didn't say specifically which one. If it's chamar stam, just plain, that means that any donkey that you have, I'm willing to rent. So if it's one doesn't make it the whole way, so he has to give him another one. If he says I want to rent this donkey, this car, right? So now there's a carcass here. There's a dead animal on the thing. What he could do is sell the carcass and buy a new donkey. It says no, it's necessary that you don't have enough money in the carcass to buy a new donkey. I don't know. So the Gemara. So maybe you can use the wreck to rent. The Gemara says Rab L'Taimei. This is Rab that follows his own reason. We don't destroy the principle. We don't want to sell the carcass and use it on a temporary rental money. Because we have a statement like this. Someone rents a donkey and it dies halfway. If you have money in the carcass to be able to purchase one, then fine. But if it comes to renting, you can't rent because that just gets consumed. Principle is consumed. Shmuel says Shmuel says no, you can even use it to rent. Everything is temporary, right? So what's the machlaikas? Rav Savale Machlin and Kana. Rav holds that we don't want to destroy the principle. You can destroy the principle. Yeah. The whole value of everything is just the use that you get out of it. So whether it's temporary or more than that, doesn't matter.
Want to use the principle to pay the
Okay. Question is if you can use up his.
It's not. Maybe it's not because he's renting. First, but it's not even the principal at all. It's really the owners. Yeah. So
Right.
that makes sense. Okay.
Right. Basically, where's the question? This is the Gemara is asking a question now from a something we had in the last chapter, the concept we had in the last chapter about a mashkanta desura. If someone Reuven lends Shimon money, and Shimon gives Reuven a collateral, gives him a field, and that field or a tree or whatever, he says, as you eat the produce of that tree, that'll be deducting off the debt. All right. So Yavashilan, let's say the collateral was a tree and the tree dries up by Niktas or it gets cut down. What does he do now? So Shneim Asurim by both of them are prohibited. The Malva, the lender, and Reuven and Shimon and the borrower. Ketzad Yasa, what should you do? Yilkach by Karka, you have to buy new property. Boichel Peris. And then the lender can eat the fruits of it. 1 second. When you buy another property, that's not permanent. You're in the land of Israel. In the land of Israel, your property that you buy is only for 50 years. So when the yovel comes, you lose that. It was basically a rental. Goes back to the owner. So Kasha and Rav. No, we were able to avoid the yovel because he says, I'm selling it for 60 years, which is more than the yovel. And I guess that if someone makes a condition like that, I guess it works.
Like a principle.
Something like that. How do you know if someone sells a property for 60 years?
Is
that
that for 60 or it could be 61?
It means over the
it could be
yovel.
51.
Over the yovel, it avoids the yovel issue. Well, how do they translate the word nitzmis?
Like to avoid
Perpetuity.
Methus. How did it say?
Perpetuity.
Yeah, which means forever.
Yeah.
Yatzuzu shein shem yovel einan nitzmis. It doesn't. Since it was sold, what does yovel affect? Only something that without the yovel it would have been forever. But because this is not forever anyway, so then the yovel doesn't affect it. That's the way it's saying it. Okay, it's not only because it's passing the yovel. It's because it's a temporary sale. The yovel doesn't affect the temporary sales.
If it's forever, then it would affect it.
Then the
If it's
yovel
not
would stop.
forever, even if it's beyond 50 years.
And the yovel doesn't affect it. Yeah. So now, the Gemara is saying that okay, so it's not considered temporary. It's considered temporary because it passes the yovel. The Gemara says, 1 second. Saif. Look at what you just did over here. This is a classic logic where they ask a question, you give an answer. The answer does not answer the question at all, but it looks like it does, and you can get away with it. It says safe. That was exactly our question. My question was that it's a temporary sale, which means it's a rental. So you said, no, it's not a temporary sale. It's for 60 years. Well, 60 years is temporary also. You were asking, but it goes back by yovel. They said, no, it doesn't go back by yovel. It goes back by 60 years. But 60 years is the same kasha.
So what's stronger, the yovel or
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because we were saying that you shouldn't be able to buy anything that's not going to be everlasting because you're going to use up the principal. Over here, you're using up the principal by this rental.
When you're hitting the yoga is like when there's no way to remove the person from there, but I guess in this case,
This was a temporary sale. So, right. Okay. And rather, we're talking about Bisman Shina Yovel Nayag. We're talking about after the Beis Hamikdash, when the time of when the Yovel rules don't apply. You have to say that as well. If we would say that it's talking about the time of Yovel and destroy and we do destroy the principle, not why doesn't he just take the wood and yeah, just and burn it? What is this? What is Benishkale and Nishkale is to sell it, I guess. Imishamha, the Gemara says no, that wouldn't be a question. Like Kasha. Zim the Shama Shnei Mashkanta Mikami Yovel Inami Matli Zuzi Parakle Arba V'Chamishnin Mikami Yovel. Really, there's no proof anyway, because it could be that the collateral wasn't until the Yovel anyway, or even if it was still the Yovel, or maybe the borrower would come up with the money and pay it back before the Yovel. Okay. We don't have really any proof from this, if you can destroy the principle or not. Okay. There's a suggestion that it has to be talking about when there's no yovel, because otherwise, why doesn't he just cut down the tree and sell the wood and get his money? It says that's not a proof, because maybe Really, it is dealing with Yovel when Yovel does exist. The only thing is that the mashkin doesn't last until Yovel. The mashkin was meant to last less years than Yovel, 50 years. If someone hires a boat and the boat sinks halfway, Reb Nosson says,
It's more like a ship.
a ship.
Sira would be a boat.
Okay. Reb Nosson says, Im Nosson, if he already paid for it, he doesn't take anything back. But if he didn't pay, he doesn't have to pay. What's the case? Let's say the way he said it is, I want to rent this boat, and because I want to transport this wine, I want to transport wine. Didn't say this wine. Also transport wine. So Ibn Nassan, if he already paid, Amayla Yitel, why doesn't he get his money back? Namalay should say to the owner of the boat, Avli Svinta, Chamra, give me a boat because I want to transport wine. You told me you're going to give me a boat, and the boat sunk. I need a boat that can transport wine. And he didn't say this wine. He said wine. Rather, what he said was, I need a boat. I want to rent a boat, any boat, and I want to transport this wine. If he didn't pay it, why shouldn't he pay? He should still have to pay because Namalay, let the owner say to the renter, give me the wine, but I'll bring you a boat. But of course, his wine is at the bottom of the ocean. So he doesn't have the wine. So we're asking either way, if he paid, if he didn't pay, the way this problem with this case, with the halacha of this case. Rav Papa says, we're talking about over here where he says, I want this boat and this wine. So neither of them are able to, well, Sfina Zu, you want the owner to supply. But Yayin Zeh, the guy says, okay, show me the wine, I'll provide you the boat. So he can't provide the wine because the wine's not there. And he only rented that boat because, and that boat's not there. So who has the lower hand? Whoever already paid. Whoever doesn't have the money has the lower hand. But if it would be any boat I want to rent and any wine, so then they would have to split the costs of, if he received the full payment, he would have to give half. If he didn't pay at all, he would have to pay half. Okay. And the Mill said, the Bedicha said, they said, they get the, he says, this guy, he wants to buy a boat. His wife doesn't let him. So he buys it anyway.
Which wife lets the guy buy a boat?
So he says, in order to be make her happy, he says, you know what, I'm going to let you name the boat. So she's a good sport. So anyway, he comes to the boat. He says the name painted on the side, for sale. Okay. Turn around, Bernard.
Take that on the road.
Someone rents a boat. And he unloads it halfway. So he rents a boat probably to go from here to there. Halfway, midway, the guy unloads it. We'll see exactly. It's not exactly the way it's being described now, but that's what it looks like. He has to pay for half. And he just has complaints. What's going on? If you can find other people to rent it to, like a taxi. Tell the guy I want to go from here to there, and then you get out in the middle. You only pay him for whatever it's up to. So okay, so I'll take a new passenger. Why does he have complaints? If you can't find another passenger over there to rent it, then you should pay him for the whole thing. So no, you can find. So then what are the complaints? Because of the wear and tear. When you take things off the boat, take things on the boat. A new passenger means that there's new that you wear down the boat. So then that's more than a complaint. A minus the gabe, he has to pay for the wear and tear. Elamai parka, what does it mean that he unloaded it? The parka letoyane begave, he actually took more on. He took another suitcase. The opposite, not that he unloaded. He's continuing on the journey, but he took on more. Elamai tarumas. So what's the complaints that the person have? Because you told me we're only going to take the 2 suitcases. Now I see this is the taxi pulls up and you have suitcases for the trunk, and then you say, no, I want another suitcase for the roof. I have a thing to tie it. So the guy doesn't want to drive like that. So it's over here, he has another suitcase. He's going to have to drive slower. He has more things. It's more complex. He has complaints about that. Inami lashli yisera, or maybe he's going to need more ropes. And so that's what he has complaints about. When it comes to the boat, Rashi explains that you need the longer ropes because you have to go deeper out into the water because it weighs down more, so you can't just be on the side. Okay. Someone rents a donkey to ride on it. Yeah, I have on the side, I have the riff as another girsa. Passenger is allowed to take his clothing, his food, his yeah. Here it says Rasulaimer Noid, a flask. So the person is allowed to take food for the way. But if he wants to take more than that, the wagon driver can stop him. This is now we're talking about your carry-ons for the airline, what you're allowed to take with you, your personal items. So this is my personal item, my whole food for my whole vacation, going for 2 weeks. What do you want me to do? So Chamar, but the driver himself, he can only put on this on the donkey barley and straw and food just for that day.
What's the ginusa? What did you say it was?
It means a water flask.
Which means to like your armaments. You have your sword, your shield.
Right.
Because it's a nice that's his food.
Right.
His food.
Right.
It's your personal stuff. And the personal item.
I remember.
You can't just charge more for the item.
That's the wear and tear.
Nowadays they charge you if you want to take an extra suitcase, but it was saying without that extra charge, what rights do you have to, and what's your limit on what you're allowed to take along? You're sharing this with the driver. So, yeah.
That's coming, I'm sure.
I remember flying to Miami on Tower Air.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Transport.
So I took the subway. I forget what, like in the morning. I went to the airport, and it felt like the same guys from the subway were now on the airplane. But I remember people with like a lot of coats, like things, and like a lot of clothing. They were wearing like no suitcase. They were wearing it all.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's one way to do it.
Okay, so it can the driver himself needs to take food. Can only take food just for that day. Wants to take more than that day, then the renter can say, no, you're loading it up. I'm not going to be comfortable, and I won't have enough for my space. What's the case? If you're going to a place where you can buy more food, so so the renter should also not be allowed. So now, why can the rent stop the the driver from taking more food. There's no food over there. That you actually buy food, but you have to go from hotel to hotel. So the driver, he knows what's going on. He knows how to get his food. He knows his way around. He knows the ins and outs of the place. So he can handle it. But the renter, he's not going from store to store to get the food for the thing. He needs to take along. That's not the way he travels. Someone rents a donkey. He says a man is going to drive on it. They take Isha. Can't have a woman driving on it. They sit the side saddle, right? Isha, if he says that a woman is going to drive on it, then they can't have a man drive it. Then you're allowed to have a man drive on it because that's like more comfortable for the animal. Isha, if he says a woman, it doesn't matter her weight, it doesn't matter how big she is, how small she is, whether she's pregnant or nursing. When it says if you said that a nursing woman is allowed to go on it, so then obviously pregnant is allowed because nursing is 2. Yeah, they don't make you pay for 2 seats if someone's pregnant, right? So they say if you're coming on with a baby, what they call on lap, infant on lap. So then for sure you can come on when you're pregnant, right? So Rav Papa says it's talking about pregnant and nursing, because that's what the chiddush is over here. You have to buy 3 seats. Abaya says Shmamina. You see from this, when a fish is by its weight, the weight is in the stomach. What does he mean to say? When it comes to buying and selling, that you see a fish with a big stomach, don't buy it by weight unless they clean out the stomach first. If you wanted the meat, if you wanted the caviar, maybe that's different. But if you wanted the meat, then then don't buy the whole fish, buy it filleted.
So in the cattle, sometimes the days before you sell a cow, you load it with cement. So when they say sell it by the weight, you've got the cemented stomach, but there's really no meat in the cow. It's all
Sure.
Wow.
Is it the case? Some cases.
Just because he says it.
No, it's true. It's a common thing in Iowa.
The cow doesn't die.
The cow doesn't die from that?
No, because it's eating it. It's not poison cement, it's just powder. It's weighing, so you get more money. By the time they cut it open, you made your money and they got stuck with an expensive cow that has a bit of meat on it.
Well, I'm really offending the cow owners in this one.
Let's go a little further.
No, because, yeah, but see that you were wrong because the price of the cow of meat might have gone down. So the guy is feeding it with expensive corn, and all of a sudden he can't recover his corn because the price of meat has gone down. So
Just feed him powder?
Okay. Someone rents a cow because he wants to plow his field. He says he has a field in the mountain. Instead of going to his field in the mountain, he goes to the field in the valley. Safe flight.
Safe flight. You in St. Louis? Poughkeepsie.
The kankan is the part of the plow. The plow, the part that goes into the ground. Then he's potter. Even though he went to the place that he didn't made up that he wasn't going to go there. That was, he said he was going to go in the mountain and he ended up going in the valley. Now the valley is going to have softer soil than the mountain, right? The topsoil is going to be more. The mountain loses the topsoil, it's more rocky. So that's why he's going to be exempt when the plow breaks in the valley. But if he said he's going to plow in the valley and he ended up going into the mountain, if the plow breaks over there, then he's chayiv because it's much more rocky and that's what caused the plow to break. He says he wants to borrow the cow because he wants to thresh the beans But instead of doing beans, legumes, he does grain. Now the beans are more slippery, and the grain is not as slippery. So he's going to be putter if it slips, because he used it for something that's even less slippery. If he did it the other way, he says that he wants to do grain, but he ends up doing kitnias, then he's chayv nesha kitnias b'chalekas because the legumes are slippery. I guess the peel and the it could be slippery. Maybe he had insurance, but he deviated from the instructions, so he loses his insurance. Yeah.
Mountain insurance.
Let's say the person doesn't make anything different. He does exactly what he's supposed to do. Who has to pay for this? If the plow breaks, Amarav Papa. Now, what happens with the plow is that you have a few people with going along with this. You have a guy in the front that drives. You have a guy in the back that's pushing it into the ground, and there's like two drivers. You ever see on the fire trucks? There's a guy that sits up on the back next to the ladder, and
Garbage guy, the driver, and the one in the back.
yeah,
Where's the one in front?
Oh,
I'm not
cool,
sure.
yeah.
But taking a break.
There's supposed to be anyway. It says like this. Rav Papa says Denakid Parsha Mishalim. It's the driver, the guy that has the thing that makes the animal go straight. He's the one that messed up because by the turning, it wasn't straight. That's what caused it to crack. Rav Shisha Breder Ravidi Amar Denakid Mana Mishalim. No, it's the guy in the back that has the thing in the ground. He pushed it in too deep, and pushed it into the rocky part. We're only supposed to plow the upper part of the soil. The Hilchasa, the halacha is Denakid Mana Mishalim, the one that's in the back by the plow. He's the one that has to pay. It's his fault. Biduch the machzik gundri, and if it's a place where there's stones, Tavaya Mishalman, then they both have to play. They both have to pay because they both should have been careful. I'm Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says, if someone sells a cow to his friend, says when he's selling it, he says you should know that this is quite a cow. This is a goring cow. Nashchanasi, it bites. Ba'atanasi, it kicks. Raftanasi, it sits down on top of things and crushes them. It actually had one of the problems, but he said that. What did you bring? What is it?
Nice plant.
Flax? From the garbage.
Oh,
Flax?
it's plastic, or is it real?
Flaxseed.
No, that's not what flax looks like.
Different variety. The Florida version. Makes linen shirt out of that.
Sawgrass.
It's not so good for sure.
Yeah, anybody else want to talk?
Okay, so it had one of the problems that this guy is saying, but it didn't have all of the problems. So the guy, because he looked at it and he said, it doesn't kick, I can handle this. It doesn't do this, it's probably fine. So this is how they sell things sometimes, like in Shidduchim, maybe they could do this. They can say, she's blind and she's limps, and you see when she walks in, that's not a bad limp.
She's dead.
And she,
Whoa.
and she doesn't seem so blind. She has glasses, and she has a temper. Oh, 1 second. You say it's probably the temper is probably so. So that's a problem, because the person, even though he said, "But I told you," he said, "Yeah, but because you mixed it into all those things that weren't true, so I didn't think that that was true. I didn't check out all of them. I checked out most of them, or some of them." Let's say he says it's blind, or it kicks, or it's whatever. So and it has something else, so that's fine, because that just two things you should have checked for. Tani Nami Hachi was also taught in a brayso. If someone sells a maid servant to his friend, this maid servant is crazy. Nichbasi, she's like epileptic. Mishumemasi, she's insane. It had one of these problems, but they mixed it in. Then we can't say, what do you mean? I told you. He said no, the other ones weren't true. Mumzeh Mamacher says he has one thing plus another thing. Notice the one of them, the one that got itemized was the one that was accurate. And they said, but there's also others. That's not considered a mekach because the one that was itemized that was detailed that you should have checked out.
Point is, if someone sells something to someone else, there was a defect, and it wasn't disclosed.
Yeah. They were saying the defect was disclosed, but it was disclosed together with a whole bunch of other things that weren't true.
That's very good for nowadays because you have these disclaimers that have every single thing possible, and then it becomes invalid because it's really nothing.
Right. Right. So Ravacha Breder Rava says to Ravashi, let's say the person says that in this shifcha, this cow, it says it has all of these blemishes. What's going to be then? It's not considered a mekach tais. Now, let me see how they translate it here. Can the buyer claim to have thought that the seller was not serious when he mentioned so many problems?
Right.
If the animal had all of these defects,
Yeah.
it is not a mistaken transaction. As he was forthright, the seller is not at fault if the buyer did not believe him.
Could it be that the buyer notices that some of the defects are not there, so then he assumes that all of them are not there?
That's right. That's what's happening. Since some of them aren't there, he assumes all of them are. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Oh, I thought you sent to Scott here.
In the English, it's listening. In
Yeah.
the English, it says that the seller